Well, good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, or good evening, depending on what part of the world you're logging in from. A very warm welcome to all of you. We're very excited that we have you guys with us. Welcome to this panel discussion. The topic of the panel is how to kickstart an AI journey within an organization. And I must say that I'm not going to disrespect your time by talking about why this topic is important, because I guess all of us pretty much know why this topic is important and how critical it is. So, with that, right, the way we are going to run the next 40 minutes for this panel is that I'll first start with my introduction and my role. After that, I'll ask my amazing co panelists to introduce themselves. That will be Dr. Felix Bradbury and Vivek Verma. They will be introducing themselves. After that, I'll bring up just one slide for a brief 30 seconds to 1 minute. And the idea of bringing that slide is so that all of us are aligned on the definition of artificial intelligence, which we are going to use for the next 40 minutes. We believe it is important. So I'll bring up that slide and it will be just one slide. And after that, we will dive into the conversation straight away. Now, having said that, I also want to say that during this entire conversation, right, if you have any questions, if you have comments, if you have reactions, please do share with us through the Q&A section or through the stage messages section, so that we can also learn from you guys in the process. So if you agree with what we are saying, not agree with what you're saying, have seen something else, please do share that. We would love to hear that from you guys as well. Having said that, now quickly talking about my introduction, right? So my name is Kapila. I will be the moderator and a panelist for today's panel discussion. And I'm the head of data science at Secours Mercy Health. We are a hospital system with around 50 hospitals across the US. And what my role there is to ensure that the data science and the machine learning models which we develop do actually end up in hands of our business users, and they get a positive return on investment from all those machine learning solutions. And users in our case are clinicians, caregivers, nurses, doctors, even HR teams, finance, supply chain, and so on and so forth. Prior to my current role, I was in consulting space, again, data science and machine learning for healthcare, and I was leading the solutioning for data science and machine learning for healthcare. I do write for Journal of AHIMA, which is American Health Information Management Association, on how healthcare can really benefit from data science and machine learning. So pretty bullish about the promise of these technologies when it comes to making healthcare simpler. So pretty excited about today's panel discussion as well, and really looking forward to learning from you all who are watching us, and of course, my amazing panelists as well. So, with that, I think I will now request Dr. Felix Bradbury to please introduce himself, and then we'll move to Vivek's introduction, and then we just dive straight in.
Hi, everybody. My name is Dr. Felix Bradbury. I work for the MITRE Corporation. I am a AI practitioner. So my way of background, I was an oncology nurse for many years, went back to school, got a doctorate in health systems management and medical economics, and then led a lot of work in payer spaces and one disease management firm for a number of years. And so I have been around data science and analytics all of my career. MITRE is a fascinating place to work. It is a think tank organization that basically serves to make America safer in a nutshell. And so a lot of the work I do has to do with um, data science assurance and safety and efficacy, and how do we move that forward so that artificial intelligence is viewed with credibility and safety, especially in the healthcare space. Certainly different than many other spaces where artificial intelligence is applied. Um, Prior to coming to MITRE, I led data science at an IBM facility called the St. Francis Healthcare System, Cape Girardeau. And prior to that, I led data science and machine learning at Accenture for about 9 years. So thank you. I'm looking forward to talking with all of you.
Thank you, Dr. Felix. Really excited to have you here. Vivek.
Hey everyone. Thanks for this beautiful introduction. And My name is Vivek Verma. I actually come from research background. Mostly, I started working in material science, sensors, and related areas. In my current role at Toyota Connected, I work at their mobility innovation team. Mostly, my work involves working in data science and analytics for various verticals at Toyota Connected, whether it is Toyota Motors, Toyota Financial Services, or whichever subsidiary is interested in. In my past role, I had worked at AstraZeneca in their data science team. I also worked at PwC, and then before I was at consulting in many small and big firms in the New York, New Jersey area in finance, fintech, and related areas. And Before coming to this AI related activities, I was in core research where I worked in research at IBM Watson Research Facility, and I have been involved in the fabrication of semiconductors, nanosensors, and similar type of cutting edge devices. um, in my free time, I host Instagrams sessions and videos to educate audiences in AI and various lucrative topics like roadmap to data science, some key areas to focus on, and also I work with many universities in India to create their own centers of excellence, wherein students can actually get into certain specific domains in AI and can build their career in that in the form of projects or in the startups. So that's pretty much about me. And thank you again for having me.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Vivek. So I think now let's start with the fun part of our discussion, which is the actual panel discussion. So let me just bring up one slide on the screen. And as I said, right, the idea of this slide is just to level set all of us on the definition of artificial intelligence, which we are going to use for the purposes of this conversation. So I'll just read it for a bit and then I'll let you absorb it as well. So, artificial intelligence represents a set of technologies that includes automated systems able to perform tasks that normally require human intelligence, such as visual perception, speech recognition, and decision making. And the field of artificial intelligence was founded on the idea that algorithms could be developed to simulate human intelligence. So I'll just give you 30 seconds to read it once again, just so that, and again, the idea is just to level set all of us on what the definition of AI we want to follow for this conversation, because there are so many definitions in the market, right? So we just thought it would be good to level set ourselves. And with that, right, with that, let me first start by asking a question to Dr. Felix Bradbury. So, Dr. Bradbury, I think I'm very curious to know, because you have such a broad experience and such so many different kind of organizations, right? So, in your experience, what are the top three challenges which organizations face when starting their AI journey, and what can they do to overcome them? So, I'd love to hear your perspectives.
Great question, Kapila. I think the first barrier that I see in a lot of organizations is what is the business or clinical question? What is the thing that's keeping them awake at night? So what is the business use case? And a lot of organizations have trouble, in my experience, framing up that initial question. Um, Oftentimes we can get to the answer, but you have to start with the right question. A lot of organizations look at AI and before that big data and before that predictive modeling as silver bullets, and they're not. They are tools and they have to be applied correctly. The second issue I see is data. Let's call it data management because it's really what it is. So it's the data management, data governance, data provenance, uh, end-to-end understanding of where the data comes from, how it's ingested, editing it, somebody, well, multiple somebodies actually, managing it to make sure that the data quality are top tier. Otherwise, it doesn't matter how good your models are, how good your tools are, you're going to wind up with a bad outcome. Especially, that's obviously especially problematic in healthcare. The third issue I see is building a culture of trust. We talked a little bit about that earlier, a trust around the safety and efficacy of artificial intelligence, especially as applied to patients. So as a clinician, we definitely cannot take the clinician out of the picture. So in terms of things organizations can do, certainly they need to have data governance. That's one. Second, it's very helpful to have a steering committee for artificial intelligence. Most companies should already have some sort of steering committee in place for reporting and analytics. So what are their priorities? What are they trying to build? And you need one for artificial intelligence, just like you would for anything else, where you decide on your priorities and develop them. Then data governance, and then certainly part of the organization that would focus on how to make AI explainable and transparent and build that level of trust across not only the patients, obviously, but across the people that are using it, and to make sure that they understand how the models are being developed, and how to know that they are safe. Thank you.
Absolutely. And thank you, Dr. Bradbury. That is, I think you said it very rightly, right? The first challenge is starting with the right question. There are so many questions. At times, what happens is that there are problems which we want to solve as AI professionals, but those problems might not be the problems which business wants to be solved. So it's very important to come to that equilibrium where you have the right question to be answered. So thank you for sharing that. Hey, Vivek, I'm curious to know, based on your experience, right? Have you also seen similar challenges, or is it something different? So what's been your experience like in this area?
Yeah, thanks for having me. And like Dr. Felix was mentioning, a lot of time this has been a bigger roadblocker when we implement any project, specifically in some sophisticated areas in the AI and machine learning. So at times there, the business comes up with a specific problem. And then when we start working on it, it takes time, trial and error to come up with some viable solution. To cite an example, for example, if you're working in natural language understanding engine and want to automate it for your business specific goal, there is a learning curve wherein you need a lot of data to train, try different models, some deep learning frameworks and things like that. So having this specifically time frame, it takes a lot of efforts within the team. However, if there is a slight change in the business objective, once we create a POC, a proof of concept, and then if the business comes up with some other, let's say, um, criteria or some other metrics to take into consideration, then it takes us back into square one, and then you have to start again working on similar set of things which I mentioned. So what it actually boils down to is that, from my own experience, I would say to start small, take some small achievable goals in a specific time frame, and then build on that. It actually helps to cut down a lot of downtime and extra efforts, which is of course needed when you start working on something new which you haven't done. So apart from the other challenges, I can cite more, but this is one of the important thing which, I would say, a lot of business stakeholders need to take into consideration.
Totally. And can't agree more. In fact, when you said, right, going back to square one in case the requirements change mid-cycle, I think one thing, it reminds me, right, one thing which we try to follow is something called as a charter document, which is like before we start on a machine learning or an AI project, we will sit with business and create something called as an AI or a machine learning charter, which will have everything right from the problem statement we are trying to solve to how does the business anticipate their world will change once this problem is solved. What are the tools and techniques we will use to solve the problem? How will we measure the success? What is the success definition from a technology perspective? What is the definition of success from a business perspective? And interesting thing is that many a times just creating that one charter document, it's a simple word document theoretically speaking, right? But that itself takes us like months altogether, because there are so many discussions which happen back and forth. And it's like when you make people sit and think through these things, right, there are more questions which arise, questions which need to be answered, clarity which needs to be given. So many a times what we have seen is it does help in reducing those situations that you have to come back to square one later. And then, as you said, right, starting small and failing fast and following that agile are some of the other technology tools and techniques which help in this space. But wonderful insights. Thank you, Vivek. And in fact, another thing which you said, right, brings me to my next question, which is for you, Vivek. So you mentioned about NLU, right, natural language understanding, and that prompted this question. So if organizations are looking to build skills and capabilities in these technologies, right, what's the best way for them to upskill their workforce? What's the best way for people on teams to upskill themselves? How should organizations go about thinking that, Vivek?
Yeah, that's like again a very great question. The answers are very pertinent because I've been speaking with a lot of mid-sized companies in US as well as in India, and I'll tell you um, some important factors to take into consideration based on my experience. The first one which comes to my mind is to set an example from the top level and take some risks. So what it actually means is that to give you an example, I was recently visiting a manufacturing facility in India, and I came to meet a senior level executive, and that gentleman is actually learning Python and machine learning. Um, the sole reason is because he actually initiated a small project, a pilot project, wherein they want to understand some of the cost saving factors, some of the cost saving processes to reduce the supply chain and other raw materials using video analytics. So the reason why I gave this example is because when such type of senior level executives set an example from the top level, it translates in the bottom as well, and it actually creates a sense of or a motivation or a, I would say, acceptance among other folks and other employees and professionals as well. So one important way to actually build internal capabilities in AI is to take risks and set examples. Again, what it actually means is to think outside the box. For example, a lot of times when you see manufacturing facilities or in general any facility, there are certain ways of thinking which has been ongoing since long time. When people like this actually take a new initiative using some capabilities of computer vision, some machine learning, it actually motivates others to think in the same line. So that's one of the important, I would say, factor or consideration. The second one is, like I was mentioning, to frame or come up with clear business objectives and implementation plan. So again, I was reading an article recently, and what it was saying is that it takes close to 18 months to 2 years um, to initiate or to ideate an AI project and to develop a scale up product out of them. So when you see this type of timeline, it needs some patience and planning as well. So rather than setting up big objectives all at once, uh, what I think is that if companies and the business owners come up with small achievable goals and work within the team to implement it, it will save a lot of resources and time. It actually will motivate the folks to work on different segments as well. So for example, if you have 2 to 3 teams who can work on small dedicated tasks, and then when they can integrate their work, it actually helps in in getting that deadline or that project implemented fast. So again, this is something which can be done, let's say, using some whiteboarding sessions, and some sort of periodic meetings or brainstorming, wherein the practitioners, the data scientists, analysts, and other folks who are involved in the team, they can actually work within the task, the timeline, and set small tasks and goals, and try to implement them. So again, this is all about thorough planning before actually starting to work on it, because we all know from our work experience that a lot of times many companies have faced roadblocks and setbacks, which costed them millions of dollars in AI and machine learning related projects, because it led them nowhere. And they had to invest in resources, in databases, data warehouses, clouds, and all those things, uh, without giving them any financial gains. And one other important thing which is coming to my mind is educating the employees the significance or importance of AI. So again, from the traditional mindset, a lot of people think that if they implement AI in their team or in their projects, their job will be at stake, because there is always a fear which is inherent in the society that AI will take away jobs. But at this point of time, from experience, we see that um, the the capabilities of AI, the projects which we see in AI, it actually supplements the human decision making abilities. We know that in future there may be some jobs which will be impacted by AI, but at this time a lot of projects which we see, it actually supplements or actually add on the decision making abilities and help teams to get more efficient. So these are the three, I would say, ways or factors in which an organization can develop their capabilities in AI. The second question: what are the strategies to upskill their workforce or employees in AI? So, as the rule of thumb says, to get started early on and motivate the employees to like go self-learning, help them with some boot camps or some sort of workshops wherein they can do hands-on and get knowledge and awareness. Always get them new techniques and new algorithms or models and new knowledge, so that they are always current with their understanding. Another important thing which I have seen from experience is cross collaboration within the team or like multiple teams. So, for example, if you have a company or a culture wherein the the manager motivates or manager appreciates taking help from multiple teams, what it actually does is that it gives the strengths from multiple folks and helps an individual to grow within that particular team. Because if someone does not know, let's say, computer vision or some sort of deep learning models, and some other team member knows, then that actually helps in adding on the benefits um, of different individuals, and it helps in collective development of the team. And then patience is also the key, because it takes time for human beings to learn and implement. So the executives, or the folks who are working in the top level, they also have to be a little patient with folks, so that they can come to the level where they can actually um, create proof of concepts of pilot projects, and then scale up the whole the the whole process. So yeah, these are some of the important things which is coming to my mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree. Wonderful points and beautifully said, Vivek. I think the one thing which I'll add is that having that growth mindset is also critical, because today, right, technology is changing so fast. So if I spend 2 months learning, let's say, about NLP, then tomorrow there is a new transformer model which is coming. So I cannot just sit and relax that, hey, I'm done with NLP now, right? Because there is a new model which is coming. So I have to have that growth mindset and always learning, keeping myself up to date. So, but yeah, totally agree with what you said. Dr. Bradbury, anything you would want to add to this, or otherwise we move on to the next question?
No, your comment about continuously learning, I think, is very important. I've found that important in my career, but many others as well. I think that's critical. I read not long ago that the person reading, well, we don't really read newspapers anymore, but if a person were to read the front page of a newspaper today, they would know more than somebody living 100 years ago would their entire life. So that in itself says something about the volume of information that we're dealing with.
That is true. That is very true. Yep, and I think that brings me to my next question, and this is something which next topic, which this is something which Dr. Bradbury you also alluded earlier, and Vivek you also alluded in your response to this question, which is about how to really have come to that point where you have a clear business problem identified. So what's the best way to communicate the value and benefits of AI to the stakeholders, and how to best address their potential concerns around AI, around machine learning and stuff like that, right? And in fact,
Mhm.
I will knit in one of the question which has come from the audience also, where they're asking that, hey, how do you uh, how can organization best manage the issues of biases which already exist in the training data for healthcare applications, especially like gender,
Mhm.
race, and class? So I think this
Right.
brings me to this topic. So Dr. Bradbury will first probably go with you.
Yeah, let me answer the second question first about some of the biases. That's a hard one. That there's no, I mean, we're humans. There's not an easy way to do that. That is absolutely certain. Unfortunately, certainly we can make every effort to be cognizant of those biases and to look for them in our training data and try, to the extent possible, try and remove them. Um, I don't have a clear cut answer for that. I wish I did. This isn't the only audience that is struggling with that problem. Um, I think uh, inherently there's always going to be some degree of bias, whether it's the person writing the code or the data itself. There's typically there is. So let's see. The second question. Repeat the second. I'm sorry. Repeat the
Yeah,
first question.
absolutely. So the first point I think was that how to best communicate the value of AI to the business stakeholders, right? And how to address
Yeah.
their concerns
Yeah.
around adoption, change management, and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I think Vivek hit it on the head. One of the things that I found very helpful is if is quick wins. If you can have a identify a problem that is not one that takes several years to solve, and that you can apply AI to it and get something done in say a 6 month time period. I think that's a very reasonable window. Um, maybe in healthcare, it's improving the throughput in your emergency department, and maybe you want to use simulation modeling and some AI to make or some recommendations as to, you know, throughput for the emergency department. Um, that might be a quick win as opposed to something more complicated and more data intensive, or where you've got to either build the data or buy the data. um, so I would say start with a quick win, look for the low hanging fruit. And that, again, that goes back to why you need an artificial intelligence work group to go through the business problems that you're seeing. Um, think in terms of what is what does it take to what is the question first? What are the uh, is the value of this problem? I mean, what is the expected return on investment of it, and how much is it going to cost to do it? And do you actually have the resources to do it? And then if you get the answer, do you know actually how to execute on it and solve the problem?
Absolutely.
A lot of organizations may have the answer, but they may not have the staff to execute upon that answer. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bradbury. And I think coming back to this question on the bias, right? One thing which we do, being a healthcare organization, and this bias in the training data, right? So along with any data science model which we put in production, we also create a model card kind of a thing, which talks about what are the situations in which we should not be using the model, right? So the first step is you acknowledge that there is a bias in the data on which you're training the model. Hence, you either exclude a particular segment or focus the model on one segment, get the model accurate on that, when you put the model in production, give that model card, have those guardrails in place so that model is not used for decision making in situations where it should not. That is step one, which we do. Step two is, see, we do not want to add to the bias. So it's like there is a population segment for which we do not have the data, hence we do not have the model. But on the other hand, for the population segment we have the data, we have the model, and we are doing more and more for them. So in a way, we are AI is also contributing to that bias, which becomes a very which doesn't sound like the right use of AI, right? So what we also try to do is use this as an opportunity to really talk to business and see how data gathering or data documentation can be improved for this population, which is not represented well, or look at other ways, right? Maybe some ethnographic research, some synthetic data, look at other ways to create that data, and then build a model on top of it, and create a kind of a governance layer on top of it, so that before actions are really taken, we are thoroughly evaluating it, and then get the feedback from that process and make the models more effective. So that's what we try to do within our organization. And I think
I like that.
uh,
Yep.
yeah. And on the point around communicating the value, right? One thing which I'm realizing is that empathy, which is so soft a skill, is all the more important in today's AI world, right? Because the users of the AI model are business folks, the language is different. The developers are the technical folks, the language is different. So for them to really understand each other, I think as AI people or experts, we have to build that empathy muscle so that we can really step into the shoes of our stakeholders, understand what they are going through, and
And well, and in healthcare, it also helps for them to understand. So AI isn't replacing a clinician. It's not replacing a physician. I have seen where it gives much more powerful insight than a clinician can get. So, for example, I think you guys are aware of the work done at SAIL at MIT's computer science lab around breast cancer screening. They have some models that actually take a mammography screen and can identify a woman at risk of breast cancer 5 years before that person actually develops breast cancer. So it's because of that powerful artificial intelligence and machine learning that it's reading that image and looking and being able to discern, hey, there's going to be a problem here. So it's not doing something different than the doctor would do at some point.
hmm,
It just has the ability to see a pattern much sooner. So it augments the doctor. It's not a replacement.
absolutely, absolutely. And it can never replace a doctor. I think it is like, at least I don't think in our lifetime, or even for our kids' lifetimes, right? For next 20, 30 years, or next 50 years, or 100 years, I don't think AI can replace a doctor anyway. Because if you think about it, right, medical science itself is not there yet. I mean, there are so many diseases for which there is no cure, so many diseases for which the cure is not 100% well defined. The doctor has to follow his experience and gut and scientific knowledge. So just codifying all of that in an automated system seems like a pretty uphill task to do. So yes, I think great conversation. One question, right, which comes to my mind, especially these days, which I think will be worth talking about, is Chat GPT, right? The way it has made an entry into the market and the way everybody is talking about it, it is all said and done, right? It is making everybody sit back and question that, hey, how do you really include technologies like these, disruptive technologies like this, into your strategy? Do you really have to overhaul your strategy every time, or is there something else we can do? But before I let you guys respond to that, right, for our audience, right, we have 5 minutes in the panel. So if there are any questions, please put them in the questions box so that we can take them up. Otherwise, we'll continue this discussion, and if we'll try to wrap it 1 minute before the scheduled time. So, Dr. Bradbury, any immediate, like 1 or 2 minutes response to how to best include these disruptive technologies in our AI roadmaps?
Yeah, it's yes. I think again, look for low hanging fruit. Look for opportunities to start small and have positive wins using something like Chat GPT. I see it being used for a whole host of things, from um, tr- uh, basically mock-ups for the US MLE, the medical licensure exams, to um, writing papers, which is a whole new interesting way of getting into plagiarism. Um, so I think we have to be very careful about how we're using it and have a very specific ideas for where we want to use it. So um, certainly I can see where it could be used for the same things like policy making in a healthcare organization, where it can look for best practices and help understand what might be the next best action given a certain scenario. Um, that's what I'm thinking at this point.
Thank you, Dr. Bradbury. Vivek, you have 30 seconds. Any quick insights?
Yes.
Well, that's a tough one. I mean, I would say ChatGPT is not going anywhere. It will improve upon itself, and there will be more competitors coming, um, similar to ChatGPT. So the best approach of integrating ChatGPT is to um, create an engine where it can answer a lot of rhetoric questions. For example, let's say if you want to cook lasagna, it will give you various methods of doing it rather than watching a video. You can just look into it. And I, I mean, I myself have tried Chat GPT with a lot of unique questions. A lot of time it has given very promising answers. So I'm still bogging my head thinking what are the other ways we can actually um, integrate Chat GPT as a product or services. So I've seen a lot of videos as well wherein people are integrating Chat GPT for question answering in various ways. I've seen in YouTube as well. So it's still early on to think the end goal for Chat GPT, because like I said, the models which are being used, it will become more intelligent as people will ask questions. And I myself have asked similar questions with different keywords, and I've seen unique answers which are more relevant to what I asked. So yeah, I mean, I would say it's a unique opportunity for a lot of people to try and think what they can do with ChatGPT.
Yeah, yeah. Well said. So we have 2 minutes remaining in the session, and there is one question. So, audience question. So before I answer that, right, or before we answer that, I think let's just take next minute to thank you to all of you guys who joined us. Has been an interesting discussion, at least from my perspective. I learned some new things from Dr. Bradbury and Vivek. So, and we would love to hear your feedback or questions. Feel free to reach out to us on LinkedIn if you have any questions you want us to if you want to brainstorm on something. So thank you so much for your time. And now I think one question, right? Like quickly, I'll take this question which has come, and then I think the platform will automatically move on to the next session. So the question is, what are the tools and methods to evaluate or test products made with large language model APIs? So if somebody is building a Hugging Face BioBot model, what's the best way to test it? So just quickly, right, 30 seconds. My view is there is no easy way to answer that, and then there is it is not different than testing for any other language model, right? Just like you will test any other deep learning NLP problem, similar approach will have to be taken here, unfortunately, because at the end of the day it is going to be used by the business for a business problem. So the testing approach need not vary. It's just that you will have to study the documentation of the LLM API pretty quickly, so that you're covering your bases. So 30 seconds left, so I want to give Dr. Bradbury and Vivek chance as well. So anything?
I think I took Vivek's time last time. So go ahead, Vivek.
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough one again. I don't think of any easy way to test LLMs, large language models. One way to do is to create a UI, like a rudimentary UI, and uh, just feed some questions. For example, if it's for specific business goal, just feed some questions and see what are the answers or the metrics or acceptance criteria with which it is answering. Other way to do is to plug in with some open source project to get more robustness in the answers and in the training. So that's one way which a lot of companies has been doing to open source it with the help of some API. Google has done it in the past with its images, and other companies I can think of. So yeah, there are some intuitive ways you can try it out.
Sounds good. So I don't know if you're still on the main stage. Thank you everyone for logging in and listening to us. Feel free to share your feedback. So, and have a wonderful day ahead and wonderful sessions as well. Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye bye.